Discussion video for April 12th, 2022 is Lava Command here. A lot to talk about. I mean, tropics, winter weather, fire, pressure gradient winds, and severe weather. We have everything to talk about today. We're going to dive straight into it. First off, there are dense fog advisories for parts of northeastern Indiana and northern Ohio. Another area of dense fog advisories are a few counties in Illinois, a few counties in northwestern Arkansas, and parts of southern and central Missouri. We also do have the blizzard warnings and the winter storm warnings for, excuse me, I did it wrong there. Let me get that out. There we go. So here it is from California all the way toward the parts of the mountains here. So that is the area of your winter storm conditions. And of course, here's your fire and wind conditions. This is going to intersect the winter storm conditions a little bit. That's the area here. I'm trying to make fire conditions and high wind conditions here. So we got multiple threats to go through. We got a lot more to talk about here. But first, let's recap a little bit what happened with the Arkansas event. This was the biggest hail report during that event. Baseball to softball size hail was reported. 4.50 inch. So normally what happens in a thunderstorm is you have updrafts, warm and cold air. When you have hail forming, it's water droplets that turn into ice in the very upper atmosphere, and then they just circle around the storm. The updraft is strong enough for the hail. As soon as the hail becomes too heavy, it falls, either in a microburst or in a hail core. That some of these cells must have been really good for 30 sig hail, because 4.50 inch hail. If this was more of a widespread event, I would say it could have been a moderate for hail. That's how good your hail was with the supercell potential yesterday. Also, there was a tornado emergency for parts of Arkansas, north and northeast of there, near the Air Force Base, near Mayflower. This is an image from Rose that he sent me during coverage yesterday. This had hail 1.25, and of course a tornado. And we got video of the tornado.
Oh my gosh. You believe it?
And you can see
There's one. Huh?
the tornado should be somewhere within that storm. That's just a very impressive lightning show. And that might be the tornado right there. Just a really interesting night yesterday in Arkansas, and a very scary one indeed. And Arkansas is not done. So let's go to the satellite image right now. Here's the winter storm right here. There's that cluster. The remnants of the severe weather that happened in Arkansas yesterday is now pushing into Kentucky and Tennessee with small flooding concerns. One severe thunderstorm warning was over here earlier today that has dissipated. And now we're starting to see the second stage of severe weather. The blizzard conditions in Montana will turn into a tornadic event for parts of Iowa, turning into a QLCS. While down south here, there is an enhanced risk, but that's all going to depend on your capping. Here's the weather analysis here. You can see earlier during the period, there was an outflow boundary. Once that disappeared, your storms got going. But it looks like another outflow boundary did form at the very end of the event and caused a lot of the storms to die suddenly across Arkansas. So outflow boundary came back and it killed the storms. The outflow boundary died during the afternoon and evening yesterday. And you know what happened here. The temperatures around the nation here, 70s and 60s across the southern parts of the Gulf Coast. Of course, we have 20s and teens across Montana, Wyoming, and parts of the Dakotas, of course, due to the blizzard conditions. And we're going to continue to see this massive pool of cold air here with this warm air moving north. Let's look at dew points real quick. The dew points here are in the 60s and 70s across the south here. So definitely supportive for a Texas event if it happens, and then those dew points are now starting to get moved north as we continue throughout. Excuse me. The Storm Prediction Center. 2 enhanced risk areas. One is for Dallas, Waco, Austin, and North. So Middle Texas here. The second one is for eastern and northeastern Kansas, northwestern Missouri, eastern Nebraska, a huge part of Iowa, and very southern Minnesota. Here is your tornado risk for today. A 10 sig is in affected parts of Des Moines, east of Lincoln, and a lot of other areas. Waterloo, and this is likely to be your main area for tornadic concern. Could the 10 sig get a little bigger? Yes, it definitely could, depending on how many supercells we have later today across Iowa. There's your flash flooding watch. A marginal risk of flash flooding for parts of small part of northeastern Kansas, eastern Nebraska, most of Iowa, most of Wisconsin, parts of Michigan, and southern to southeastern Minnesota. Another slight risk of flash flooding is in effect for central and western Mississippi, southwestern Tennessee, central, southern, and eastern Arkansas, and parts of central and northern Louisiana. Excuse me. But the biggest risk today, besides the severe weather, is a critical to extreme fire risk. Woodward, Garden City, Lubbock, Midland, Amarillo, I believe that is called. Forgive me if I pronounce that wrong. McCook, Kobe, near Santa Fe, the east of Pueblo. This is a very big fire risk condition. If you just say if you were smoking cigarettes, don't put your cigarette into the dry grass. It's going to be windy. It's going to be dry. If you have campfires, make sure to don't leave them unattended. Always put them out before you go to sleep. And if the wind gets gusty, just put the campfire out. Don't risk it because this is a very serious fire risk hazard. And this is also a reason why parts of Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas may cap instead of produce severe weather. However, in the latest models, we did see the HRRR try to put something near Dallas and Waco. So, excuse me, very stuffy nose this morning. So, we will just have to see what happens. Day 2, a huge enhanced risk for Indiana, or pretty much the whole state of Indiana, western Tennessee, and western Kentucky, 2/3 of Illinois, central to southeastern Missouri, northwestern Alabama, 2/3 of Mississippi, almost the whole state of Arkansas, except for the very western and northwestern corners, very eastern Texas, a very small sliver of Texas, next to the Shreveport NWS area, and central Louisiana and north here. There's also a small marginal risk in effect for parts of Pennsylvania and New York State. Let's look at your tornado risk. A small 2% for tornadoes is highlighted in Pennsylvania and New York. We could see 1 or 2 things of action here. But of course, the big area is the 5 to 10 sig. The 10 sig includes the areas mostly in the enhanced, but some areas of the enhanced may not be in it. That's likely because of damaging wind. We'll see, though. 5% from very small parts of Michigan and Wisconsin all the way to the Gulf Coast. So we have a huge area of QLCS / discrete supercell / semi-discrete possible. Here is your wind. And you can see the rest of the enhanced. If you're not at the 10 sig, you are in a 30% or a 30% sig across this area. Memphis, Jackson, Evansville, Louisville, Indianapolis, Greenville, Little Rock, Jackson, the very northwestern part of the Huntsville television market, including 4 counties. So if you are in the SIG wind or SIG tour risk, you need to really pay attention. And if there's any discrete supercells or good semi-discrete supercells, yes, there could be a SIG hail. There is a 15 SIG hail for Shreveport, Greenville, Little Rock, Memphis, Jackson, and just in the surrounding areas. So everything is sick. And of course, in this marginal risk here, we don't want to forget that there is also a 5% chance of wind for Pennsylvania and New York, and then a hail percentage for mostly only Pennsylvania, a 5%, which is very interesting here. Your flash flooding risk for tomorrow includes a slight risk of flash flooding for very eastern Arkansas, central to eastern Louisiana, all of Mississippi, 2/3 of Tennessee, half of Kentucky, 2/3 of Indiana, 2/3 of Illinois, and central to western Alabama. And there's your fire risk. A critical fire risk is affecting parts of western Texas and eastern New Mexico today. So there's a lot going on. Another little elevated fire risk for parts of central Nebraska. The storm prediction center on day 3. A marginal risk of severe weather. The Florida Panhandle all the way to the northeast United States. This includes a lot of our popular cities. And I'm very curious to see if a small area here does go a slight risk. This looks big enough to do it. However, due to the unknowns of the upper air patterns and what's going to happen, I see why they did put a marginal risk. So this is a big marginal risk, basically from the Florida Panhandle and southeastern Alabama, central Georgia, almost the whole state of South Carolina, almost all the state of North Carolina except the western parts, central and eastern Virginia, Washington, D.C. included, Delaware, most of Maryland, 1/3 of Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, and parts of the northeast United States. So that is a big risk there. And the flash flooding outlook on day 3 by the Weather Prediction Center, this could change. There is a small marginal risk of flooding for southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and parts of southwestern Georgia. There's also a marginal risk for parts of the northeast United States. Model fans, to get to the HRR and NAM here, and I want to show something very interesting because I've been noticing this about the events here. So we're going to go to dew point. And we're going to go throughout the day here. It's expected to go a lot of 60s, even 70s on the very southern part. But then it kind of fades out as the QLCS moves in. However, your moisture does try to stay in there. And then it tries to rise back up a little bit over here. The SPC did mention maybe a potential for some thunderstorms here. I'm very curious if that stays. It looks like your dew points from the HRR model. This only goes out to 48 hours, so you're going to see a shorter preview here. But it should be good for both events here. Yeah, but your dew points really start going down as the cold front moves into the eastern part, the later half of the risk here. But during the main part of the risk, from Iowa into the beginning of the Nets Enhanced risk, you have a very good amount of dew points here. And it slowly goes out as we continue to watch this. So any chance of discrete storms would likely be between late morning into maybe the early evening at best. After that, you would have a problem. Give me a second. My nose is super stuffy. I do apologize. Just one of the members of the weather team here. The winter storm index, 1 out of 10. We're going to talk about some winter weather here. So here is the blizzard warning. The blizzard warning remains in effect. Heavy snow and blizzard conditions expected. Local total snow accumulations between 12 to 24 inches, with higher amounts of the 30 inches possible. Wind gusts as high as 50 miles an hour. Yesterday, I rated the storm 8 out of 10. 12 to 24, winds gonna see as high as 50 miles an hour again. And I think that's just going to be the same theme. So it's pretty consistent. Now we got area of 6 to 14. We got area of 6 to 12. 10 to 23. So it's mostly consistent here. We do have an area of potentially locally up to 30 inches. Here's the timing in central time for this. 3 to 5 a.m. for parts the Bismarck NWS area in south. 5 to 8 a.m. for parts the central area of their NWS, and 8 to 11 a.m. for the northern part here. Let's look at the significant snow potential. The area in pink, of course, is concerns about either breaks or potentially some rain. This is near I believe this is near South Dakota, where some of that warm air does go for the Iowa event. So that's interesting. But you see a lot of 20 and 30-inch potentials, 15 to 20, 8 to 16. So it's widespread 20. I say widespread 20s with some localized 30, with potentially some widespread 25s too. And a very huge area of a extreme impact event potential for parts of North Dakota and Montana. Of course, some major impacts do go to northwestern South Dakota at this time. So what's the winter storm scale? I would actually upgrade this respectfully to a 9 out of 10. The only reason why this is not a 10 out of 10 is due to two things. One, your gust/sustained winds can only be to 50 miles an hour. And the second thing is it's Montana and North Dakota always get snow. However, due to this very late snowstorm, I would rate this a 9 out of 10. PDS snowstorm requirements. So if you're in that area, you need to be taking very much caution. You need to be taking caution in any winter scenario. However, this one, you need to take precaution. I know it's North Dakota, Montana. You likely see so many blizzards, but this one I feel like is pretty dangerous. So now that we are done with that, let's go quickly to tropics here. The SCSU has done their 2022 forecast as of April 7th, 2022. We were going to mention this, but of course, the severe weather here. The name storms predicted are 19. Name storm days are 90. Hurricanes potentially could be 9. Hurricane days could be 35. Major hurricane days would be 9, and major hurricane potential is 4. The net tropical cyclone activity and the ACE is 160 to 170. The normal averages are 14.4, so yeah, there's I think a little bit of above average season to start. This is very interesting. That's because we're not expecting El Nino anymore. We are expecting La Nina to persist for the rest of the year. Maybe a weakening La Nina, but we are expecting La Nina to persist the rest of the year. Speaking of tropics, real quick, we do have tropical cyclone in the Western Pacific. I do want to mention this for our tropical fans. Of course, it looks like it has went through a eye wall replacement cycle, telling by the way its organization is and how broad its eye is. We can get a closer zoom in look here, hopefully to see if I'm right here, because I've done a lot of tropical before. I'm pretty famous for it in postal service. Yep, so you can see here how so let's get that up here. Let's get an earlier loop here. Yeah, perfect. So let's do this here. Okay. So let's go. What color should we do? Let's go maroon. So yeah, as you can see here, here's the inner core. It looks like a double eye wall was trying to form here. And of course, there's your low pressure, which is the eye. And if we take a look at future frames here, it looks like a secondary eye wall did form, and it went through an eye wall replacement cycle. Because you can look, those two converged, and it did get bigger, and the structure did get a little bit iffy. So it looks like it did go through an eye wall replacement cycle, which is very interesting. Real quick to track of the cyclone here. It is between Guam and the Philippines here. The coordinates of this are 16.0 north and 135.1 east. It's a typhoon. You can see it has a very large wind field here of tropical storm force winds, but only a small core of typhoon force winds. That's very interesting. That's likely due to it either all of a sudden rapidly intensifying potentially after the eye wall replacement cycle, or the eye wall replacement cycle made the wind field that big. And of course, the track is supposed to miss Japan, and it's supposed to go out to sea. So that's it for this weather discussion video. I hope I covered everything that people wanted to know. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much for the support. And I could potentially go live later today. We will see you later.